You're muted there, Chief. Yeah, still muted.
Doesn't show muted. That's troubling.
All right. Well, we'll go back to, we'll keep going on with the introductions here. Other guests, our consultant Karen Reed.
Hi everyone, nice to see you.
And the financial analysis analyst here, Mr. Cushman. Yeah, you're muted there too, Bob. There'll be a little microphone down there with a red line.
It's not showing on screen that he's muted.
All I can see is me.
And then we have representation from Local 106, Mr. Cunningham.
Yep, I'm here.
Chris Parks, District 4 Administrator. You there, Chris? Hello, Ms. Parks?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
And our Secretary, Jenny Sand.
I'm here, thank you.
We all here? Everybody unmuted? Chief intervene?
So.
He's still.
Something wrong with his mics there.
Might need to bring your volume up, Jace.
I think 12 people might be too many for a Zoom meeting here.
You want me to step out?
No, it's all right. How about I'll step out? You guys just run the meeting yourselves.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
I'm trying.
Hello. Okay.
Bill?
Yes.
All right, we can hear you now.
Bill.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, great. Thank you.
Chief Intervene, you're still.
Okay.
Did you want to go on your phone or do you want to restart the whole meeting?
Are you speaking to me, Chief?
No, he's.
Oh.
Well, he's not speaking to anybody right now because he's got a microphone problem.
Darn, it was working perfectly for just a second there.
1 second. I think that's what that means.
Universal sign language.
Yeah,
Underneath the desk.
diving under the desk.
Somebody's probably scanning YouTube for the all-time most frustrating moments of Zoom, you know?
Hey, that's a really good idea.
I think this one would be pretty calm.
Probably.
Just to test out, has my mic resolved itself, the problem?
Yeah,
Yes,
you're,
Okay, thank
you're
you.
loud and clear, Mr. Cushman.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Feedback is still there, but I don't mind it.
Let's go with it.
Try to keep quiet.
All right, so you are here, Chief Intervene. We'll just go ahead. Introductions are done, and everybody's had a chance to review the previous the agenda for this meeting, the consent agenda.
Yes.
Anybody have any issues, discussion about it? Guess not. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. All right. Everybody approved by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Looks like the consent agenda is passed. Everybody have a hello? Is that
I think
anybody
that
have
was
a comment?
feedback, and the chief has just turned his mic off, which will probably help.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Everybody have a chance to review the previous meeting minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody have any issues? They want to add any discussion? Nope. All right. Is there a motion to approve the meeting 3 minutes?
So move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fisher. Everybody signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Looks like it is passed. And the the previous meeting minutes passed, and we'll hand it over to Karen to go with the follow-up on meeting 3.
Yeah, this is for me to hand it right back to y'all. I guess since we last met, you each had board meetings and had an opportunity to go over separately with your commissioners the charter that we adopted last time, the work plan, the recommendation about shared funding, which was included in the charter, and then the communications plan and proposed initial text for the website. And we're looking to see, just from your sense of each or any of you from having participated in that meeting, maybe we'll talk with the respective board chairs. How did that discussion go? Were there any issues, any questions back for the committee, any feedback for us? Dave, do you want to start?
I know with District 4, we were real pleased with everything we saw. I don't think we had, very few questions for Commissioner Chamberlain. It looked like some really good hard work went into it already.
All right. Good. And Bruce, how was the discussion at your end?
Fine, as you know, 4 of us were in attendance at that meeting. So the 5th, Kimberly was just getting her up to speed, and we gave her an opportunity to provide any other additional feedback. And I have heard none. Chief, did you get anything back from Kimberly at all?
You're going to challenge him.
No, I did not hear anything back.
Just
Karen,
wanted
the
to
only
see
thing that
if the volume was working there, Chief. No, we're good to go. Everything looked good. Thanks.
Mark, you were saying?
the only thing I heard from my board was that just a strong emphasis that when we get to that point in March, when we're getting ready to go to election, is that we hire an election consultant specialist.
In the spring? Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Mark. I forgot that part. That's important.
Yeah. Okay. All right, then we will be able to, we've done our check-in with them on the first sort of foundational things that we've got. So we're good to go. We'll move on to the next pile of stuff and send them back stuff as you guys work through it. So that's great. That's a good news. The district side-by-side comparison document, basically there was one, I did not see that, but there was just one data point that the chief was able to run some numbers on the average household value, and the values for the 2 districts were pretty similar. Chief, I don't know if you've got those close at hand. They're both less than 300,000, and as I recall, within $20,000 of each other. So that information, if he can find it and share it with us, will go on that side-by-side document. And it's helpful for then when we get to the point of looking at different possible levy rates, you'll be able to sort of eyeball what the annual tax impact would be on households in either district with that information in hand. Chief?
So it is page, man, I am just fumble fingers today. It is page 22 of 33 in the packet. So it comes after some of the communication stuff. And we did, based on my calculations with a lot of help from someone that knows Excel better than me, we calculated District 21's median assessed value for a home at $266,620 and District 4's at $266,895. We still have, all the stuff we use to crunch those numbers. So I may send them to Mr. Cushman and see if he can come up with something different. But those seem appropriate. So like I said, it's just deeper in the packet. It's further down on page 22.
So we'll have that. I'm not seeing it, but I miss things. So at any rate, we have that data and we'll use that as we move forward. So that was all we wanted to do on item 5, unless there are any questions on that.
That number just seems to, it just seems low to me, but with Semiahmoo up there and the homes out along our lake out here and just this area alone. So, but I'm not sure how the calculation is, what all goes into that. So I'm not qualified to say that really.
So what I did was on the Excel spreadsheet, I pulled out all the commercial properties and just ran the residential, anything listed as residential. So even maybe this, hindsight being 2020, maybe my error, but I even pulled out lots, residential buildable lots were in there. So those prices are going to bring it down a little bit. If we just went by current stick built residences, yes, the number may be higher, but I just pulled anything that was residential out and ran the number from that.
And is that using the assessor's numbers?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that
Yes, sir.
makes sense to me. That's not the appraised values of the homes.
It's not
I
Zillow.
got it.
No,
I understand.
I used from the county. Yeah, I didn't use Zillow. So
That makes sense.
Okay, so the next, if are any other questions to that, or should we move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is just touching base quickly, next steps on the communications plan. If we've got a thumbs up from the board, so anything to follow up on the side-by-side comparison document and house values?
No.
Nothing here.
All right, so then on the communications plans, we got 2 things. One was the idea, make sure we make a note that there is support for hiring a specialist to help us with public outreach if we are on track to actually go forward with an election, and to do that in the spring next year. So that's good. We'd like to then go ahead. The next step, I think, would be to go ahead and get the North Wacom staff to post the proposed text online, filling in the blanks with little, email links and boxes as necessary. We could take out the question about the benefit charge if you wanted, and we're just without adding an extra detail in case people were nervous about that, or we could just leave it as it is. So any thoughts about just going forward with that text that we have and getting that up and running?
I think as a starter, it looks good. There was a part in there that talked about the meetings. When it said first meeting was August 26th, second meeting was September 24th. I don't know if we just want to state that we began this process August 26th, and then the committee is meeting twice a month, and rather than saying first meeting was this day, second meeting was that day, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, let's do that. That's easy. Are folks okay with that kind of a change?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
That'd be fine.
All right, we can do that. Any other suggestions before this goes live? So we'll be able to update it as we go, and I think it's a good place to start.
The only thing about the benefit service charge is if that's not something that we're, as a planning committee, really going to entertain out of the chute, it might be confusing.
So I think
Mr. Cushman has an opinion on that. He's our financial guy, but I think we could introduce it later, but I think as a taxpayer, I'd be a little bit leery about jumping right into the benefit service charge, especially since only 2 of the RFAs are currently doing that.
I think there are 7 fire districts that have a benefit charge. Only a couple RFAs.
Right.
Well, we could on that question is on page 2 of the communications text. We could, at the bottom of the page there, we could make that bold facing of fire benefit charge language, just make it regular font. And we could delete the next question entirely about what's the fire benefit charge.
Or have a link if someone wanted to do more research on it, rather,
I liked your first idea. Hold off on it.
just not have it at all.
Yeah, not yet.
So where do we land here? Taking out the question, the detailed description on what the fire benefit charge is about, and just.
I would hate for downstream someone, a taxpayer, to bring up to us, well, how come you didn't tell us about the fire benefit charge? Even if you're not going to implement it, we could put in there that it, at this point in the planning process, the committee has not entertained the need for a fire benefit charge. And that might be more transparent. We're saying that, look, it is a thing, but we're not, at this point, we're not entertaining that idea. And if we choose to, we'll let you know sooner rather than later.
I think that was discussed in previous discussion that we were going to mention something that, although we can do this, we're not going to at this time kind of statement in there.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on that.
I think that's sort of vaguely correct. Yeah. So we could just say at the beginning of the fire benefit charge question, we could start the response with something like, the planning committee is not currently considering a benefit charge to be as a portion of the funding, but if that changes, we would update these FAQs. And then you could, by way of background, blah, 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 benefit charge does this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, or leaving it. I mean, I think the easier the better, but I mean, we also say at the previous questioning at the end, the RFA planning committee will make a recommendation on the funding plan. So
Okay.
are we being kind of redundant but I understand the chief's position on being honest from the start.
Why don't we just say we'll do the funding at a later, we'll make a funding recommendation at a later time, and then reiterate again, we're not currently considering deploying a benefit charge initially, but by way of background, blah, blah, blah. That's very transparent, and it reiterates that we haven't made any decisions.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anybody
I can
else have
support
any?
whatever you guys decide.
That work for you, Scott?
That works.
John?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm good with that. That sounds like a great idea there.
Okay. Harry?
I'm on top.
Okay. All right,
good, Harry?
that's the plan. We'll get that posted. You should be able to see it sometime, maybe in the next week, depending on how busy everybody is over at headquarters. And I'll send a revised text to you, Chief, for them to use. Okay, thank you. So that gets us down to the draft values and principles statement, which is just sort of like a way of saying, if you want to know what we think good government looks like, these are some examples of characteristics of good local government, and that we share these values as a group. It's not like it's a binding document, but it's just sort of a helpful place to start with building shared common ground. So when we met last time, you guys wanted to, I tweaked the first sentence in item 5 on participatory governance. So the first part of the sentence now just talks about jurisdictions which participate as forming members in the RFA. And then you guys wanted to take a little bit more time and think about whether anything was missing here or any wording should be tweaked further, and we would come back to it today. So here we are. And the question is, do you guys have some thoughts about further changes or edits to this? It's not necessary to adopt this, but if it's helpful to just sort of remind ourselves about the type of an organization that we want to build, then that's what this is for. Any further thoughts about this one? I see nothing from Dave there. Bruce, okay. Mark? Anyone else?
No.
Nothing here.
Would you gentlemen like to adopt this as a statement, or just leave it?
Do we
I
want to
move
make
to adopt.
so there's a motion to adopt by Commissioner Fisher there.
I'll second it.
Dave will second it. Is there anybody want to add any discussion? No discussion then? All right, let's do a vote to approve. Everybody wants to approve it? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody don't want to approve it? All right, looks like we've approved it.
Excellent. This will be something that you can then also take forward to your respective boards and see what their thoughts are at their next meetings. And that gets us to, we're building on that discussion about building a good government agency. That takes us next to the start of our governance discussion. And the briefing that's in your packet here is just sort of the starter rules of the road for how RFAs can govern themselves, and a matrix at the back end of the briefing that gives you an examples of all the other RFAs in the state and how they've put themselves together. So I thought I might just go over this at a high level, just sort of page by page, and you guys can stop me at any point if you want to make a comment like, I hate that idea, I love that idea, I have no understanding what you're talking about, or does this mean X? Just so let's just try to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what the opportunities are here as you move forward. And what we're going to try to do today is just sort of get a sense of, from y'all, of if you would like to go beyond just the initial board, which will be some combination of you as sitting commissioners for the two agencies, to posit how you would like that board to transform over time to some kind of a directly elected thing, whether or not that involves commissioners being appointed from the two participating jurisdictions or moving to a different, more directly elected model. So just want to try to get a sense of that today so we know what the scope of work is, and then try to answer any questions that you may have. So that's the goal of this presentation. Any questions before I start?
Are you talking about the document on page 26 of the packet? Is that?
It says RFA governance issues and options at the top.
Yeah, it's 25 and 26, Bruce.
And it goes on a few more pages from there.
Got it.
So everybody got it in front of them?
Yep.
Okie doke. So this is one of the biggest jobs you have at this committee, is deciding how you would propose to structure the governance for the new Regional Fire Authority. And that at a minimum includes deciding how the positions are filled, whether you are appointing them from the fire district commissions, the two current organizations, which is the way you have to start. But over time, you could move to a different model. So that's a question. How many seats? How's the terms of offices are set up? How are they staggered? Are you going to have districts? Are they going to be at large? Are they going to be a mix of that? And then there may be some operational rules that are so important to you that you want to call for a supermajority. That's unusual. I've not seen that in other RFA plans, but if there are operational questions that are really key to you, that's something you can think about now. The caveat before I go a lot further on this is that the governance plan can be changed at any point in the future by a majority vote of the commissioners of the RFA, unless you prescribe otherwise. So if you get it wrong now, that's not fatal, as long as you reserve the right to change it as you go forward. It's unusual. It's hard to imagine a city council that could just say, next year we're going to have 4 council members instead of 7. But you guys actually have that flexibility in an RFA. You can do all sorts of things. Whether you should is a different question, but you do have a whole lot of flexibility in where you go. So I've got a table there that shows what my understanding from checking in with Chris and Jenny about what the current positions and term expirations are for everybody on the two agencies right now. And you can see that the terms are, of course, staggered, and they are 6-year terms. So you can see how that is working, and they're all currently at-large terms. Neither fire district has districted positions. Then if you look at the bottom of that page, you can sort of see the comparison of the population between the two districts, as well as the assessed value. And the good news here is that the percentages of those two factors, population and assessed value, are in pretty close alignment. There's not a huge disparity, and that makes it sort of easier to come together as a group. You can see that the total population of the RFA will be about 44,000 people. That's a sizable jurisdiction. I was emailing with South Whatcom, and they said they were down around like 12,000. It was a really small number. I was quite surprised. So you'll be this will be a much bigger agency. I'm going to move to the second page here and just talk about some of the basic rules here. So RFA board members have to be either directly elected by the people, or they have to be an elected official of a participating jurisdiction. And in this case, that would mean either District 4 or District 21. You will have to have an initial board of folks that is just appointed. Some subset or all of you that are commissioners now will need to be, will comprise the initial board of the RFA, because there will not be an election until after the RFA is created. Only once the RFA is created can it call for an election for its commissioners. And since you're on the schedule by law of every 2 years of having those elections, it means that the initial board will have to serve through the end of 2023. That's not too long if you're up and running in the fall of 2021, but it does mean that some or all of you will be doing double duty with being a district commissioner and an RFA commissioner through until the end of 2023.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So I would kind of imagine, just by the size of the districts, by square miles, you know, by, I guess, is that how we call it, square miles served, that District 21 is much larger in square mileage and area. And so one area that I'm familiar with, because I was involved with the South Whatcom board coming together, was we went to the districts, and where I guess my question is, regardless if we go with a 5-district or a 7-person or a 5-member board, if we chose to go, let's just pretend we went with a 5-member and we had 3 members from District 21 and we had 2 members from District 4.
Mm-hmm.
If one of us chose to, or Mark and I both live very close together, so it wouldn't make sense for both of us, and Mark's doing such a great job that I would just step aside for him. Is that a possibility if we did it that way? Or do I not have that option of just stepping out because of, you know, we're just going to a 5-member?
If you decided that your initial board would have only 5 members and you wanted it to be 3 members from North Whatcom and 2 members from Fire District 4, that's entirely possible.
Okay.
That's not a problem at all.
All right.
Okay, so any other questions at this point? And this is making sense so far?
That would be along the lines of districting, correct?
That would be along the lines of districting. You're right, Mark.
But that initial board of where you as commissioners come, as elected commissioners from the 2 districts serve on the RFA board, that's not about districting. There's no districting involved there. That's just
right.
That's
pick a number, pick the allocation, go.
You're talking about the first 2 years before it's dissolved.
Right.
If we want to do that after it's dissolved, after 2023, then that would be districting, correct?
Yeah, you couldn't have districting until you were moving to directly elected positions. And there will be no directly elected positions serving until the beginning of 2024.
Okay, my question, the reason I asked that question was twofold. When we voted in the South Whatcom Regional Fire Authority, Ron Swanson and I were both commissioners. We had a 3-member board. We were both commissioners. I stepped off because we went to districts, I stepped off, so I was not on the Regional Fire Authority board, but I did have to complete my 1 year. I had 1 more year in my term, where we did have business that had to be approved. It was pretty simple, but I was strictly only a district commissioner at that time. And that was what I was trying to get at, to make sure that
you could do that here. It's my understanding you could also have all 8 of you serve on the RFA board if you wanted to in that initial period, but it's perfectly fine to do something less than that.
Yeah, I'm good with whatever the group decides.
Okay, so again, whatever structure you pick, you can change typically with a majority vote. of the Board of Commissioners. And that's a right that you reserve to yourself in the RFA plan. And just moving on, so you could change the structure by numbers or districting or at large or however over time. That gives you the flexibility. For example, if in the distant future Bellingham wanted to join the RFA, you'd have the ability to adjust the governance structure to make room for them in some way that made sense for the three of you. So, and or another fire district, or you, so you really have a lot of flexibility to adjust this to make it work for the partners over time. There's no limit on the number of people that can be on the board, except just really a practical limit. You don't want complete mayhem every time you have a board meeting and you've got 27 people trying to get a voice in edgewise or something. Generally not recommended. And if you look at the back, the 3 pages at the back of this briefing that have the little matrix with the orange bars up top, you can see what people have done across the state. And I thought it might be just sort of instructive to take 2 minutes and look at this. This just is the current governance structure and a little bit, some verbiage about how they started and how they evolved for all the RFAs in the state. Renton has 6 voting and 1 non-voting member. Their structure is probably a little sketchy in terms of 1 person, 1 vote, because Renton is vastly larger than District 25. And they have equally shared the votes, and they are elected positions. So that's a little, but other than that, you can see West Benton has 5. They're using a mix of districts and at large. Mason County started with 8, shrank to 5. They're all at large. The Kent RFA, known as Puget Sound, has 9 members, and those are allocated by jurisdiction. So they're all appointed by jurisdictions, and then they have some non-voting members representing agencies that joined the RFA later. Southeast Thurston started with 6, 2 from each of the 3 participating jurisdictions. They still have that approach. And it's districted now, 2 people from each of 3 districts, which must theoretically be approximately the same size, but I haven't checked that part. West Thurston, 6 people, 3 and 3, and they have moved it. They've anticipated going from 3 each down to a total of 5, with 2 districts and 1 at large. South Whatcom has 5. And there are 5 districts. So everybody on the South Whatcom board is from a district, which is fascinating to me given how small the population of that fire authority is. I'm surprised that they haven't had a kind of a trouble finding folks to serve, but that's the plan they did. Down in Centralia, a 5-member at-large board. South King County, where you've got Algona, Pacific, and Auburn. They've again divided up the seats between the participating jurisdictions equally. So that's a completely appointed board. It's appointed to the extent its council members and the mayors are considered elected. So it's still a minority elected. So it's okay that it's not 1 person, 1 vote. North County RFA, they're at 7, 3 districts, 4 at large. And Stanwood is annexed in and Arlington is annexing in, and I've been working with them, and they've developed another governance structure to accommodate that. They've actually added 2 districts so they're going to go to a 5 districts and 2 at large. There is their proposal.
County, Karen?
Yeah.
Are they going into North County then?
Arlington is looking to join North County. They're going to their voters in February. The RFA just approved the plan last week, and it's going to the city council next week. They've been integrated operationally, and they've had some shared staffing positions at leadership for a number of years. So it's not a huge, it's a big deal for Arlington. They've had their own fire district for 100 years, and it's kind of a change in their self-image to not have a fire department. So, but the fire trucks will still say Arlington on them, and that was a big deal. So, the last three here, you see South Beach, 5 districted members. The South Snohomish County RFA, that has 7 members, 5 districts and 2 at large, which, and then Marysville has 4 city council members and 2 of the 3 district commissioners serving. So you can see people don't pick really huge numbers, but there's a big variety in what people have chosen to do. And that's the nice thing about the RFA statute. You have the flexibility. Okay. You can have non-voting members, as you saw in that matrix. Nobody's term can exceed 6 years. And then something which, if you haven't been aware of this before, it's kind of an interesting system that they have for getting people elected from districts in RFAs. The district elections in the primary, only people that live in the district can vote. And then they take the top 2 people, top 2 vote getters from each district, and everybody in the entire RFA gets to vote who's the winner in every district. Plus they get to vote on the at-large ones. So it's an interesting system. Okay, the one person, one vote principle applies when you have a majority of members of the board who are considered to be elected. If somebody serves by dint of their office, like you say, the chair of the Board of Commissioners of Fire District 4 will always be on the board. He's considered to be elected because that is an automatic appointment. There's no question who it's going to be. But if you're saying 2 of 3 commissioners from Fire District 4, those are appointed because we don't know who those will be from time to time. So anyway, we'll watch out in case you guys fall in love with some structure that is completely violates this rule. But I've given you a bunch of examples that will work here. And so, you know, if we have any questions about it, we'll just confirm it with legal. So you can see that you can do just about anything in the initial structure through the end of 2023. You could all participate. You could have just 3 people participating, anything in between. A lot of flexibility there. And then if you want to start thinking about future board structures, you also could have a mix of sitting commissioners if it was important to you to keep the 2 fire districts in separate legal existence, you could do that. It's a little inconsistent with the story about why we're doing this in the first place, but you could choose to do that. And so you could have a mix of commissioners from the 2 fire districts, as well as you could have all commissioners from the fire districts, but I think you'd get into a 1 person, 1 vote problem eventually there. And then you could mix it up with having people directly elected by folks throughout the RFA, either in districts or at large or all of the above. So I've given you a number of examples of how a 5-member board could work, because 5 was a number that came up a lot in my conversations with you. But these are not the only examples of how a 5-member board could be structured. They're just food for thought. Noteworthy, you can't district just a part of the RFA and not the other. If you're going to do districts, you got to district the whole thing. The districting is done based on the most recent census. So we'll be using the 2020 census numbers when they come out. Those will be the ones that would be used if you decide you need districts. And that is about all I wanted to say on this. I think the question is, do you guys want to spend some time thinking beyond, you know, the initial board of all or some subset of you serving on the initial RFA board to figure out what you'd like that to look like after 2023? So sort of come up with a transition plan for how that first board would look and the extent to which it would be directly elected and districted or at large. Do you want to do both of those board structures, initial and beyond there, or just stop at the transition and pick that up in a year? That's sort of the question.
What would be the easiest of the 2 at this point?
Well, easiest might just be doing what you want to do now, but most people have identified a transition board. Just about everybody that's in that appendix that I mapped out for you said, okay, before we can have elections, it'll be like this. And then after we have elections, it'll be like that. And in part, they do that because the voters want to know. When you go out and talk to the voters, they're probably going to want to know, how is this going to be governed in the future? And you should have a proposal for them. I don't think it's terribly complicated. I think unless, and you guys hadn't, when I talked to you, at least nobody had really augured in on like, it's got to be like this or I'm going home. So I think you've got some room to find something that works for all of you here in a transitional board. And because I think the voters will really want to know, I would recommend that you do both. Try to find how you want to do both.
So did I hear you correctly? Let's just switch it up a little bit. And let's say that we decided to go with a 7-member board at first. And we went with 4 districts from, if it worked that way, with districts. But if we went with 4 from District 21 and the 3 here at District 4, we could switch and break that, decrease that number if we wanted to. We could vote to, at a later time, we could bring that down to a 5-member board, or I suppose they could even do a 6-member board, it sounds like. But I like to have that odd number a little bit, so there's never that concern of that vote. And we're all good together. Everybody's got the same objective here.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm tracking 100% because I think the word district gets confusing because we're talking fire districts.
Oh no, I mean RFA districting.
Okay, yeah. So you could, I mean, if you say, okay, we want to start with 7 of us, and it'll be all 5 district 21 commissioners and 2 of the District 4 commissioners, and they'll serve through the end of 2023. Right. But then in 2023, you would have an election. And if you do districts, any districts at all in your future board, all of those districts have to be up for election in 2023 to start serving in January. You can't stagger the start, but you can stagger the terms of those districts. And you can even say that the commissioners themselves will pick how long they want to serve if you want, as long as it's 2, 4, or 6 years. So you build your staggering into your first election, if that makes sense.
I like John's question, what's the easiest way to go? And I'm supportive of whatever the group chooses, the best way to make it probably the most, which makes the most sense and makes it ease for the long term. Mm-hmm. So that's my statement.
Well, I think part of it just, and so some of the questions are what do you each see as the pros and cons of having a districted seat versus an at-large seat? How important is it to you to have one or the other or both, and why? So
yeah, I'm not qualified to answer that.
So some people think, well, I really want to make sure there's somebody from my part of the swamp will always be on this board. But at the same time, other people might say, I would worry that if we were all districted, we would all just be looking at our own parochial interests in our little territory. So I'd like to have a mix of at-large people in here so that we know we have some people that are going to be looking over the interests of the entire agency. On the other hand, the districted people have to be approved by the entire agency. And a district map has to be kept up to date and creates, I think, a little bit more process for you. But so those are some of the things that you hear people say pros and cons about districts. So how important do you think it would be to the voters to know that there was going to be somebody from their area that would be guaranteed to be on the board of this new RFA? So that's just a hypothetical question. What thoughts do you have about that?
I think it would be important that first 2 years before the districts are dissolved.
Okay. But after that seems so critical.
Especially while we're selling the whole program.
Yeah, I think after that, I'm in favor of Commissioner Crawford's idea of doing what's easy. And I think having commissioners at large versus commissioners districted is a lot easier. We don't have to keep up districts, and we We don't have to worry about whether or not someone's going to run for a position or try to find somebody to run for a position in an area. I mean, we have a hard enough time as it is. There's elections where nobody runs or against an opponent. So that's just my 2020 or my insight on it. I'm sure people would probably have other ideas, but I think it's important that we kind of keep the district at the beginning for that first 2 years. And I don't see a problem whether it be 7 or just all 8 of us do the first 2 years, or if anybody wants out, just signify by saying aye.
Well, can I ask that question, Karen? If to me it would make sense to just say everybody comes over. We take all 8 of us. But if someone 6 months into it says, you know, I'm kind of tired of doing this, I want out. Does that mean we have to replace that person and have an 8th? Or can we write in here that we will start with 8 with the goal of getting to 5? And if between 8 and 5 we're getting there, can we write that?
Yep.
Without having to vote in that vacant position?
Yeah, you might want to give a minimum threshold. So one person was left standing, you don't want to have it just one person left standing, but you could, if you started with 8 and you said that we won't, if there are any resignations, we will not fill them so long as the minimum board size doesn't fall below X and we continue to have representation from both districts. You could write something like that for the initial.
So
I like that too.
If we were to do that, and let's say by some strange happenstance that in 2023 we are now at a 5-person board, do then we start that election process and regardless of how we got there, we still have to in 2023 have an election and stagger everything. Is that correct?
Yeah, that you would still need to have if you're going, unless you say we want to keep this if you want the districts to go away, then you need to move to a directly elected model. And in 2023, that would be your earliest opportunity to say, okay, everybody, here's the people that are running for these commissioner seats. There's X number of them, and they're at large, or they're districted, or some mix, and a separate ballot measure. Would you like to dissolve this district? And that Fire District 4, would you like to dissolve Fire District 21? And that gets that out of the way, and you've reduced the units of government and the complexity, and you're doing that that thing that you said was a reason to looking at this RFA to really unify the operation. Am I making sense, or did I answer the question?
Yeah, basically it was, even if we were at 5, we still then have to go out to election.
Yeah.
And I would like to just start with 8 and say no less than 5 and see how we get to the end.
Okay. But with a caveat that at least there needs to be at least one from both agencies.
Yes.
Initially, yes.
At least for the first 2 years until you're ready to cast that, say that's done. So what else? So that we've got a vote. We're sort of we won't vote on it, but I'll bring back some ideas based on this next time. So, and I'm bring something back where it's all 8 with no filling vacancies, dropping to a minimum of 5 with 1 from each agency as a potential for the transition board that was served through the end of 2023. That would be simple and straightforward and no fist fighting, and that would be great. So then let's think about any thoughts about districts versus at large to follow on from what Mark was saying. I'll just go in the order I'm sort of seeing you. I'd love to hear from everybody on this so we know we're tracking together. Bruce, do you have strong feelings or not so much about districts versus at large in the long-term context?
Well, if we do districts, that's got to be equal population representation too, right? Which as people move and we build and add and subtract, I think that would create unneeded issues. And I agree with Mark that sometimes it's hard just to get one warm body. You know, it would be kind of weird if all 5 were from Simiamu. But you know, I guess at some point the voters have to say, well, I don't want that to happen, and they figure it out. I think ultimately it evens itself out over time if the public will figure it out. So I am not in favor of districting. I think we need to keep it as simple as possible. Yeah, whether we say someone always has to be from the in the future former District 4 area, I just think we're going to have a hard time figuring out what that is and who that is and how to manage it.
So that's one data point, which I may not have been super clear on that census data. Even if there's a ton of development, which means it's like it doesn't look like that at all anymore. You're stuck with the census data for 10 years.
Okay.
You redistrict every 10 years, whether you need to or not, and you can't do it any sooner.
Gotcha.
So it's got to be based on the federal census data. So,
all right. Well,
so it's not quite as herky-jerky as it might be given the vagaries of.
That covers my term limits then.
There you go. What am I going to be doing in 2030?
Yeah.
All right, Dave, what do you think?
I'm on board with Commissioner Ansel. I support that.
Anything else? Any questions or other thoughts about how to make this look good for or feel good for the voters in both communities?
Mr. Andrews, do you have any comment?
No, I go along with that program.
Commissioner Crawford or Commissioner Fisher?
I like the idea of just going RFA and dissolve the districts. That seems the easiest and softer way.
How about referring to the districting or the at-large? That's kind of what we're
At large.
Yeah. Hey, Karen, so why don't you you just maybe put together either a sheet or an email with some bullet points, what we discussed here today, what people liked, and that thought process of like maybe just bringing all 8 of us into this, into that dissolving period, that 2-year period, and what Commissioner Ansel said about if we go down to 5 and how we go about doing that, and if there's one from each area, from each district, and during that 2-year period, and
Okay.
you get the gist.
Yep, I will do that. My only thing I'll say is that the language on page 3 in that first table talks about the 1 person, 1 vote. First run, all the members are elected. It says the test is only applicable after the terms of office of a majority of sitting commissioners expire. By my read, that wouldn't happen until the end of 2023. So I believe that 5 and 3 will work through the end of 2023, that all of you serving will work. But if I have missed that sentence there in that cell was provided by Rich, and if I have that wrong, I will let you know.
Let me ask a question on that though. What does that do with Commissioner Chamberlain's position? And then I'm sorry, but I don't have the last name of the new commissioner, that the appointed commissioners we each have one can we get around them where they wouldn't have to run for the next election? Could they be appointed in?
So, because your districts will still exist, yeah, and they'll still be.
I thought I'd take a try.
Yeah.
So does that mean we'll be appointed again, or we'll have to run?
You have to run, I believe. You have to run.
All right.
And it'll be a short election period, but yeah. And you don't personally have to run. You could decide you've had enough of this, but somebody
not here.
If there are 5, let's say we have 6 by then, and 5 or 6 of us would have to run if we wanted to continue on, and then we would decide the staggered terms. Position 1 is for 2 years, position 2 is for 4 years, position 3 is for 6 years, etc.
Right. Right. You would, and you can actually, when you go to the voters, you'll tell them what the term of office is for each of the positions. And you could stagger those, or actually North County RFA came up with this idea that they wouldn't tell anybody. They would just say, we'll decide ourselves, but it just won't be more than 6, and it will be staggered by state law. And they did that because you won't have this situation, but they had city council members who couldn't run for 2 offices at the same election. So they wanted to have the term set so the city council members could stay on the RFA board and stay on the council by never ever having, that won't work for indefinitely, but they could get themselves a couple of terms by picking the length of their first term as an RFA commissioner so that it didn't coincide, the end of their term did not coincide with their council election date. You won't have that problem unless you guys create a city and become mayor. You should be good to go. Okay, this is great. Any other questions or ideas? I'll bring this back. I'll send it out to you in advance to sort of chew on between now and the next time we meet. And we may be making great progress on this. So thank you very much. If anything occurs, just give me a shout. I'm happy to try to answer any questions there. And that, thank you very much, brings us to the main event today, which is item 10. Item 9 we're going to skip because the subcommittee hasn't had a chance to meet. But item 10 is we're going to ask Bill to share his screen and walk through with us. He's got an interactive model at his end. We sent you a non-interactive model that you couldn't mess with, but you could see what the ingredients are. And Bill keeps total control of this model. I'll just warn you, you can't have it and mess with it yourself, but he's happy to mess with it for you if you tell him what you're interested in exploring. So with that, I will just say, I met Bill Cushlin over 30 years ago when I was a baby bond lawyer, and he was finance director for the city of Everett. And I was so pleased to run into him again when I started doing the work on the South County RFA down in Snow County, which he was working with them. And I am just delighted that he has agreed to work with us on this project. He is the grand master of RFA 7-year financial forecasts. So with that, Bill, I will turn it over to you and you can share your screen with folks.
Right. I'm going to close the blinds because the sun is glaring in.
That's that pesky yellow object in the sky.
There we go. Oh, hang on just a second.
It's still you're looking pretty stripy there, Bill.
Yeah. I hope that takes care of it. Well, that's the best we can do for right now.
All right.
It's nice to meet all of you. And I guess the saying is, this is not my first rodeo. I've worked with, I think, 15 or 16 different fire districts using this same type of analysis, and been able to assist them in forming RFAs. So I'm looking forward to another opportunity. And what I'd like to introduce today is what I call a strategic financial planning model. And it answers the 3 most significant questions that you can ask as a fire chief or a fire commissioner about your organization. And that is question 1, where are we right now as an organization? 2, where do we want to be, or where are we going? Where would we like to go? And 3, how are we going to get there? If you can answer all of those 3 questions, you have the essence of a strategic plan that will actually work. Question number 2, where do we want to be? Where do we want to go is just another way of saying, what are our goals? So getting someplace is to achieve a goal of your organization. As far as the first question, you have already secured the services of ESCI in 2019, and they provided you with a over 100-page document of where you are right now as an organization. If you read through that in entirety, you know virtually everything you ever wanted to know about your fire stations, about your fleet inventory, your entire organization and all of its personnel, about your deployment. There's extensive analysis in the ESCI report about response times as they exist today, and about your coverage area, and about your current revenue in 2019 at the time, and your current expenses. But what it doesn't do is tell you what your goals are or allow you to express your concerns about your goals, i.e., where do you want to go in the future and how are you going to get there? So, first of all, let's talk a minute about goals. What is a goal? It's another way of saying we would like to acquire more apparatus, or specifically a new engine, or a new ladder truck, or a pumper, or a tanker. As far as equipment, we would like to have a replacement schedule for our PPE, or air packs, or jaws of life, or hoses, or perhaps a new station in the future. These are all goals. But we also have to ask, how are we going to achieve those goals? Generally, that comes down to a question of finances. And that in turn comes down to a question of, do we pay cash? Do we save up that cash in a reserve fund and then use it? Do we ask the voters to approve a bond issue? Or do we issue what is known as councilmanic debt, where you don't have to ask the voters, but at the same time, you don't get to rely upon them to make the bond payments? So you have a number of strategies to finance your way towards the accomplishment of a goal. The other issue is goals require a time element. You can't just say, we would like to acquire a new station, or just say a new fire engine is going to cost $600,000. You need to combine those. We want a new engine. We want to keep the cost at $600,000. And the third element is we want to acquire that new engine in 2024. So again, you have to keep all of these targets moving together simultaneously. If you do, and you have a well-documented plan, you will in fact be able to accomplish those goals in the time frame that you have specified. Now, the one caveat is you can't have it all. There isn't enough money in existence or enough levy capacity to afford new engines, new equipment, more stations, more personnel, all at the same time. But you can achieve virtually all of your goals over a period of time if you, again, have a documented plan or approach to how you will accomplish each one in turn, not all together, all at the same time, but sequentially. You will be able to accomplish virtually anything you want. The analysis that I provide is, as Karen pointed out, interactive. Unlike the ESCI report, it says, here it is, it's printed on paper in ink, it can't be changed. ESCI gave you a point in time. This is how things exist today. The model that I provide says Here, give me your thoughts. What are your goals? What are your limits as far as levy rates? What is the maximum levy rate you would tolerate in order to accomplish a certain goal? Have you looked for alternative financing, such as grants, or explored any other type of funding, such as voter-approved bonds, in which they would bear the burden of repayment? The model will provide alternate ways of accomplishing various goals. In that sense, it's interactive because as you come to state any number of goals, you will soon realize you can't accomplish all of them all at the same time. But as you begin to sort them as in terms of their priority, I can provide you with additional analysis that will give you immediate feedback, even including through a Zoom meeting such as we're having right now. And you can make a decision either singly or collectively. All right, we need to postpone that goal for a year or two because we have another goal which has a higher priority. So let me, if with your permission, go through a couple of examples in this model so that we can back up what I'm attempting to tell you here today. First of all, have you had a chance to scan or look at the model which was provided?
The Excel spreadsheet model?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
I wish it was longer.
He's the team masochist right there. Yeah.
Oh, well, one of the models I did for Snohomish County 7, Monroe, and District 8, which have now consolidated all into a massive RFA, that model contained over 60,000 formulas. So you can see there is a certain level of complexity involved, but the result is that you will be able to do some very fine-tuned analysis along the way, given the amount of data that is provided. So without further ado,
yeah.
Karen, go ahead.
I said, let's see that spreadsheet.
All right, here we
There you go.
Host disabled screen sharing. Okay.
We need the chief. Just stand by a second, Bill.
All right. This, by the way, is my first Zoom meeting, so bear with me if you will.
Other than the test meeting we had yesterday.
Yes.
You got it, Chief? Are we sharing?
There we go. Here we go. Share. Okay.
Ta-da. We can see it.
Okay. Let's, this is called the executive summary. Now remember that this analysis is its purpose is to orient itself towards fire commissioners and fire chiefs and to aid in the communication between the two so that you're virtually always on the same page dealing with the same information. There's no hidden agendas, no hidden data, no applied or reported data that you didn't know about. So in this, we start off right off the bat with your assessed values. And we'll come to an analysis of that in a moment. You then know how much money, cash money, you had in the bank on January 1 of the current year. You also are informed this is your current levy rate, $1.12 for the fire levy and 25 cents for the EMS levy. And as you can see, those diminish over years until they are renewed or restored by a vote of the people called a levy lid lift. You have a line showing the property taxes that result from those levy rates, your operating income, the total cash that's available, how much money you set aside into reserves, how much you spent on labor and M&O, and how much you have at the end of the year. You repeat that process for 7 years, and at the end of the 7th year, you will have $2,048,000 in the general fund. In reserves, you will have accumulated $2,196,000 in each of 6 different reserves, each one dedicated to a very specific purpose. Let's skip that one. Here again is just the bottom line. Total cash available in the general fund and in reserves. You then have an opportunity to see that in graphic form. So your fund balance, your cash balance goes from 900 and some thousand to 2,048,000. And again, all of the details that you need in your communications between the fire chief and the commissioners, everybody gets the same information. All of your revenues, all of your expenses, the cost of labor by program, the cost of operations or M&O by program, the staffing by program, how many total employees are in each of the programs, and what their ranks are. So you've got 4 firefighter EMTs and 1 mechanic and 1 assistant chief and 2 captains. You then have the opportunity, program by program, to go in. They already are assigned where every existing employee is budgeted. You can then alter that plan. For instance, if you wanted to hire an additional firefighter, you just type in the code number, but you wanted to wait until 2023. We're going to hire an additional one. Then we're going to hire 2, and then we're going to hire 3 and keep it at 3 for the next 2 years. You then can go back and you can see we went from 21 employees to 22 to 23 to 24. Now, what happened to that 2,048,000 that you had at the end of 2026? You're down to $365,000. That quick, you can determine the cost of 3 additional firefighters hired in 2023, 24, and 25, and determine immediately we can't afford that many new firefighters, or we need to do something on the revenue side because we cannot tolerate our total cash balance falling to $365,000. Let's say that you are determined as a goal to establish a new level of service with additional firefighters. One of your there's the cash result. So let's do a levy lid lift. Let's raise that to $1.40. It's currently $1.20. So now we're up to $1.40. You submit that to the voters. If they approve that, now you're back up to 3,058,000. So you can in fact hire additional firefighters going from 21 total staffing to 24, 3 additional firefighters, and you could then say, well, let's we don't need that much. Let's do $1 instead of $1.40. Let's do $1.30. Now where are we? Now we're at $1.6 million, and you may say, well, that isn't quite enough. We should be a little higher than that. So you can immediately determine that this should be $1.35. Boom. Your new fund balance is $2.3 million, which is virtually where we started before we added these additional personnel. Very quickly, you can go to your operating revenue. You can look down the list of various incomes. You can look at the alleged or supposed growth rate in those operating revenues. And if you think one of them is too low, say ambulance services, say that's one of your services that you provide. You could renegotiate that service contract so that this goes up at 5% a year instead of 2%. You can seek out certain grants, and if you are awarded those grants, you can add them in here for whatever years they apply, and that will go right to your bottom line. As far as the emergency reserve, if you don't have one, you can create one, and you begin by setting a goal. And in this case, we're saying this is our operating budget. We want to set 15% aside. I'm sorry, this is not your operating, this is the goal. This is 15% of your operating budget. So you say 15% as a goal, and all the commissioners and the chief, everybody buys into that. And you can see that you still by 2026, you haven't achieved that goal. You're only at 80%. So you could say, well, we'll just reduce that to 10%. Now you have achieved your goal in 2024 or 25. But you say, well, we've achieved our goal, but our goal is too low. We really need to be at 15%. Well, you could then say, where's that? If we have to put aside additional funds, where is it going to come from? Well, it's going to come from property taxes. Right now, your emergency reserve, you're putting $75,000 into it, and you want to achieve your goal by 26. So you can go to your emergency reserve, and you could say, let's make that 90,000 instead of 75, and we'll grow it at 3% per year. You're now at 97% of your goal. That money came from property taxes, so it reduced the amount that you had in the general fund, but the money has been redeposited, not spent, in your emergency reserve. So you still have the funds. In your apparatus reserve, you have a complete fleet inventory, and you can list all of your apparatus, how much you paid for it, when you bought it, and when it's due for replacement. The model will then calculate how much you have to set aside every year, and when you're going to spend it, in what year, and what fund balance you will retain after you've purchased your new equipment. Let's say for a moment that this fire truck right here, this engine with a 30-year life, bought in 1993, has just worn out. You cannot wait until 2023. You want to replace it next year. So you want to buy it 2 years sooner. So you simply put in -2. That moves it back 2 years to 2021. And again, you don't have to do the math. The model does all the math for you, rearranges your spending patterns, and shows there's still no negative fund balance, so that you can safely acquire that new engine 2 years in advance and still have positive cash in your reserve fund. We can do the same thing with the equipment, where you have all of your air packs and generators and chainsaws and jaws of life. Each one has a purchase price, a life expectancy, and a cost inflation factor, and you can change any of those aspects and have it show up in your cash flow. And as long as you maintain a positive cash balance, you're relatively safe to go ahead and change the specific replacement goals that you may have set years before. Facilities, again, here's an example. Right now, we only have in this model ongoing annual station maintenance of about $25,000. Let's say you wanted or needed to re-roof station 10, and it was going to cost $85,000 in 2021. Boom, there you go. $85,000 new expense. But look what happened. You're now $49,000 in the hole. So let's go up and add 49, so that's 79,000 from property taxes. But now it's saying increase that 3% a year. Well, you don't need to. By the way, let's go back and look at our property tax. There's our $79,000 coming out of property taxes, and more importantly, coming out of the general fund. But you still have a positive fund balance, $1,096,000 at the end of 26. So we'll go back. We'll say we were only putting in $25,000 a year. So let's reduce the next year minus 75%. Now, I see we're in deficits. So let's reduce it minus 60%. There we go. We got down to $328, but at least we got through. And now your annual contributions are back to where they were. You've got a positive fund balance, however small. The point of all of these exercises is to demonstrate that the model will allow you to set any number of goals. We can then try any number of alternative revenue alternatives to achieve those goals. Sooner or later, we're going to run into an impasse. We're not going to have enough money to do everything. So then you begin to prioritize and say, all right, instead of 2021 for that roof, let's make it 2025. Now you'll notice that this 85,000 in 21 now jumps out. Let's see if we can find it here. Out to 2025 right there. So that will delay that expense for 3 additional years. You can then find alternative if the roof doesn't collapse by 21, you can delay it. So and you can change your hiring schemes, your equipment replacement, your apparatus replacement, your contributions into an emergency reserve fund, into here's one that not too many fire departments have: the cost of retirement payouts. One district I worked with had the ability to save up 720 hours of sick leave and 544 hours of vacation. Now, if the fire chief, with all due respect, decided in his final years before he retired in 2026, that payout would be $120,000. So for those departments that have failed to provide adequate cash for those retirements, you'll be hard pressed to meet your financial obligations. And there's a provision for entering a job title and an expected retirement year. The model then figures out what will be the cost of those hours over the next 7 years, with a a labor inflation of 5% per year, and do all the math, do all the calculations, and present. In this case, there's a retirement there, one there, one there, and one there. For the administrative personnel and the firefighters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And like I say, all the math is done. If you can provide an estimated retirement date and an estimated number of hours, in this case, I've used maximum hours. Some people have not saved up the maximum number of hours, but if they did, this would be the full financial impact.
So,
yes.
So
please.
Bill, we're at 35 minutes, and I'm wondering whether if there's more you want to show folks, or are we okay to move to questions?
I have just one more quick glance at another sheet, and then we're wide open at that point. I'm going to shrink this a little bit. This is a view of this sample model of District 1 and District 99 proposing to form an RFA. This shows their respective assessed values starting in 2009 through 2020. And in this case, we'll substitute 21 and 4 for those numbers. This then gives you a view of their assessed values. And you'll recall we went through quite a downturn beginning in 9 and 10 and all the way through 15 or 16 or 17. This is the recovery. This is where it is in 20 after this huge downturn. The red dotted line represents what if there had been no downturn, and we went from here in 2010 to here in 2020 and just drew a straight line, what would be the average annual growth of assessed values? Well, it'd be 2.54% per year. But what if we said, forget about 2009, let's start in 2017, and it grew between 17 and 20, it grew almost 8% per year. So the commissioners are going to be asked, what level of growth are you comfortable with in anticipating the next 7 years. I don't want to impose some unrealistic number or one which makes you uncomfortable as being way too conservative, like 2%, or we need the money, so let's pretend it's going to grow at 12% per year. Very uncomfortable. But after whatever discussion you care to engage in, you need to tell me what number you're comfortable with. Now, I'm not asking you to forecast what the assessed value growth will be over the next 7 years, but what number can you accept as a reasonable compromise that you're comfortable with?
And to be clear, we're not doing this today.
No. I still have to fill in hundreds and hundreds of pieces of data, which the chief has promised to be provided. So at this point, as you say, what questions can I answer?
I think you get a sense of how the work of the subcommittees that are trying to develop a baseline and a baseline plus scenario are so important to the model. So what is the what is the level of assets and people we need to maintain service levels? And if reasonably sized wishes were horses, what additional pieces would we need? And with that data, Bill, and understanding the cost of those various things, Bill can plop those in the model and play with it, and we can see what we can accomplish for what kind of tax rate.
That's correct. The whole idea is to provide. You will never hear me say, "Thank you for your new goals. I'll get back to you in a month or so, or a week, or 15 days." I would like to be able to say, let me enter those, and you'll have an immediate response. You can tell within literally a minute whether that new goal you provide is acceptable in terms of leaving you with a certain amount of cash at the end of 2026.
Are there any questions for Bill? It's an overwhelming pile of data for sure, but you can get a sense of how powerful it is in terms of helping provide some direction and options.
It looks like a great model to me. And since I was one that volunteered to help do that initial wish list, I think it's going to work very well for us.
Excellent.
Great.
Any other comments for folks or questions?
Just a lot to mull over.
Yes, it is. So we'll see Bill periodically when he needs to get some direction from you on things like what kind of growth rate, and he'll bring some options so you guys can see, like, well, what's the county assuming? We'll try to figure out that, for example, and for their general growth rate. And what is Bellingham assuming for its growth rate? And you guys will have to sort of make a decision. And you can also say, well, let's run it with 2 different scenarios. Let's pretend we're going to just like take fire here, or let's pretend it's going to be a little chill. What's the difference for us? How much flex do we have? So he'll come back periodically as he's able to populate the model with the data that you all provide him. And then we can run through together in real time some scenarios that'll help us augur in on where we want that initial tax levy to be in order to meet what you think is most important to be able to offer to the voters for the service level of an RFA. So anything else, Bill, or are we good for now?
We are good for now. I am standing by, eagerly anticipating the receipt of certain data. And as it arrives, I will immediately put it into the model and report back to the chief the results at that particular point in time.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill.
Alrighty.
That's so amazing. It's interesting to see this thing in work because it is so quick to be able to test a million different things, and it's all interactive. But it's a lot of work for the team to get you that data, so appreciate that as well. If we are done with this item, we are just in the last couple of things on our agenda today.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks
Let's
very
see.
much, Bill. I think the next thing we've got is future committee meetings, and I don't know whether Chief, you wanted to take that on. We got Mark down on the agenda here, so I'll step back now. And what do we know about next meeting, possible time or date?
Let's see, we had,
I think you had it down for the 3rd.
yes.
Did you just want to send out a doodle poll for that whole week?
Thought we did the 2nd.
Yeah, we had this. I actually have scheduled the 2nd already.
Okay, I meant the 2nd.
Sent out a meeting invite for that.
But I think the time that you said on the 2nd actually did not work for me.
Okay.
I responded to, I've got a meeting that I am running from 1 to 4 that afternoon, but otherwise I'm wide open on Monday the 2nd. I just got the 1 to 4 o'clock, which is not terribly helpful. I'm sorry.
Could we do a 10 to noon on that day?
Yep.
Keep it on the 2nd, but do 10 to noon instead.
Does that work for other folks?
No, I'm gonna have to ask Bosman to step in if we do it on the 2nd.
We can, that's fine. I'm available.
I'm available on the 2nd.
I'm available.
I think Commissioner Andrews is checking there.
Commissioner Hanson had to step out. He had to go to an eye appointment, so
Okay.
I can't speak for him.
He's here.
Let's double check that. Does that work for you, Harry?
Yes, it does.
10 to
Awesome.
12 on the 2nd.
What time though?
10 a.m.
Ooh, now that, hold on a minute.
Okay.
That'll work. I have a 2 o'clock meeting, but that'll work fine.
Okay. So we'll continue with governance, and depending on the chief's availability, we may dive into some of the organizational chart basics and talk about maybe staffing gaps that are extant that are particularly important to y'all to try to fill, thinking about baseline and baseline plus and trying to build those 2 scenarios for how the future might look in terms of service levels. So that's something we'll talk about. We'll work through on some governance stuff. And otherwise, I'll be looking back at the work plan and seeing what it tells me we will be doing. We'll go as fast as we can on the model, but it's a huge lift for the staff. So I'm guessing the model and will be coming to us a little bit later than next meeting. I don't think we'll have it done. Unless Jason gets that cloning machine that he's been asking for.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
It's okay. I think we got some play in the schedule. I think we'll be all right. So I think that's it. Closing comments maybe from Ken. Kenneth, did you have anything for the gang?
Nope, I'm okay today.
Okie doke. Anyone else have closing comments? We can do a roundtable again, or we can just, if anybody has anything they want to offer up here before we let y'all go.
I don't have anything.
Thanks.
Nothing here.
Good. Okay, everybody's good. Everybody's looking pretty good.
Nothing really here. I thought we had good conversation today.
Yeah, it was.
I've never
really
seen an
helpful.
Excel spreadsheet with so many tabs.
Horror. I'm not a math player. Anybody else have
Commissioner,
anything?
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That was super interesting.
Yeah.
And a little overwhelming, to be honest. So,
All righty. I think we're good. Mark, do you want to?
You want to adjourn the meeting? We will. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I just have one last question for Bill. Does he have that spreadsheet for Vegas or?
So moved.
So lucky.
All right. Scott's made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Harry seconds. Everybody in favor adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
So pass.